Excellent. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are having an incredible week. So today I launch a new series where we're going to dive really deep into research and understanding of what the hybridization program is from the inside out. And I've been wanting to do this series for a very long time. And I think that it is important not just because we want to understand what the hybridization program is. So many of the people that join my support group every month, we have discussions about the experiences that people are having, the side effects, and trying to understand and comprehend those that are experiencing traumatic experiences in the hybridization program and those that are experiencing maybe high vibrational experiences. So in this series, we're going to discuss several topics, including what it means to participate in the hybridization program, the origin of hybridization through history since the conception of life on this planet, and through history, how hybridization has played a role in molding society, molding our current timeline, and molding the human race into what it is today. So this is going to take a process of understanding historically that the hybridization program is not just something that just happened recently or that we're just discovering and becoming aware of. And it has nothing to do with only this generation of souls that are existing on this earth. In fact, the hybridization program is something that is generational, it's intergenerational, and it is something that's interdimensional. And why I feel that this combines with our spiritual evolution, because within the profound understanding of what the hybridization program is, in the understanding of what it means to splice genetic data from our human bodies, we can find the tool, the key to understanding the portal into the soul and the connection from the soul into our interdimensional aspects. And for any person that has been studying alchemy or that has been studying the elevation and activation of the higher faculties of the human body, understands that this is the key. Understanding creation, what it means to bring life into this realm, is actually the key for all human beings. As we exist in this current earth, we are here not only to experience and learn through experience, but to experience creation and to learn what creation is. And the ability to create is actually one of the most powerful gifts that the human has, because they have the ability of transcending beyond the physical limitations of this three-dimensional plane. In fact, the ability to master creation is the ability to navigate interdimensionally in all dimensional aspects that exist within our body, as the human vessel is exactly what is the entry point and the access portal into all these dimensional aspects of ourselves. And we are not only talking about ET aspects of ourselves or other dimensional planes in the future, but as you know, in a spherical expression of simultaneous aspects of yourself that are being expressed from your genetic data. And our genetic data is basically the substance. It is a portal that allows us to access all of these fragmentations of yourself in past lives, in future aspects of yourself. The timeline is non-linear. Therefore, our ability to access into these dimensional planes of information and to shift collectively how we anchor source into this collective field of the earth that we call our present time is essential to the evolution of those that wish to participate. And encoded within your DNA, by accessing through DNA reprogramming, hypnotherapy, and these tools that we utilize to access root cyclical programs, we begin to dissolve the programming that inhibits the true essence of the human mind and body, the true potential of the human. the true potential of the human, which is to become an infinite creator in all dimensional layers. And if the human understands these very profound, you can call them secrets or wisdom, this very ancient knowledge that has been utilized for a very long time, for many, many centuries in cultures around the world, and also in other dimensional expressions, we begin to understand the value of the human and how our DNA becomes a cocktail, not only of genetic data and future aspects of ourselves, but becomes a library of infinite information on how to activate the very highly advanced technology of the human body in order to activate higher faculties, which are our intuition, our ability to heal the vessel, and the ability to affect matter in this physical dimensional plane. These are things that we see in films such as Jedi's, Magi's, and many other characters that have been portrayed to us as an unreachable, character that displays a human's highest potential. None of those things are actually fantasy. They are actually what is encoded within our DNA, what is encoded within this physical vessel. And the incredible thing about that is that once we begin to tune into this information, we can begin to anchor and channel information about not just historically this planet Earth, but begin to access aspects of ourselves, our ancestral lineages, our ancestors from the past and ancestors that we are now co-creating, our out-of-body experiences, the experiences that we have when we go to sleep in dream state, and the experiences that we begin to have when we leave the body, whether we are preparing for death or the navigation of the realm in the astral plane, is actually where the majority of everything which is encoded in the non-protein writing genetic code is actually allowing us to access fragments of ourselves in higher dimensional planes. So our ability to access and activate this information in our DNA really allows us to begin to master the evolution and will help us shift in the way that we see how we raise our children, how we teach and hold our space, and how we begin to hold space for others that are learning and evolving at this level. So there is such valuable wisdom that is available for us by understanding the hybridization program, as it doesn't just affect a very small percentage of our human race, but in fact, every human on this planet has learned at some point in history how to master and work with life force. And what we learn here on this channel is primarily how to work with life force and what it means to begin to cultivate that into the essence of creation. Now, the hybridization program, we're going to be taking a look at several aspects of the hybridization program. We have so many questions in regards to the hybridization program that I have been collecting for the past couple years that I am going to be answering over this next series. But we're going to address everything from the Immaculate Conception to virgin births through history, taking a look at genetic bloodlines, preservation of genetic bloodlines through history, into bloodlines of elite groups, and how these bloodlines have been dispersed into our society, into what we call the human race today. We're also going to be taking a look at how different genetic traits have been developed into the different races of the human race, and how they speak to the star seed lineages that are expressed within that consciousness. How in each incarnation, the human activates very key aspects of their genetic traits and star seed lineages that are activated within that genetic code. And every generation that is born into this human earth has an opportunity to access this information for this specific bloodline. Now, when I talk about bloodlines, we're talking about, I don't necessarily want to separate them, but I want to address that one bloodline or one aspect of the bloodline is terrestrial and physical and relates to the ancestral lineage on Earth. So all of your ancestors that run down the bloodline of your mother and father or any other parent figure. So keep that in mind. It's not just about your biological father and mother. It also includes the parent figures that are participating and playing a role in your life. All of these bloodlines are participating as essences of biological spiritual data that input into the co-creation of the experience that you are having here in this lifetime. So if we begin to acknowledge the repetitive patterns that we are exhibiting in our life and deprogram and integrate from them, which means heal them, reintegrate, allows an expansion and activation in the genetic code. And as you reintegrate each one of these genetic patterns, these emotional, psychological, physical patterns that we are living through, we can begin to access the next level of information. After we address the physical data and the information that is informing the protein writing processes of the physical body, we begin to access the holographic DNA, which allows us to access bloodlines that are now in the out-of-body aspect of ourselves, our multidimensional body. And the multidimensional body is the morphogenetic field, which is interconnected with all organisms on this earth. But within that field is the instruction manual of all the data that the human has access to from the subconscious and the collective unconscious. So all of these are kind of organized in a kind of archetypal organizations or ranges of vibrational frequency of which make up everything that we are, and everything that we have access to. So through this genetic data, both the physical and non-physical, we have access to this information as to our star seed lineages, which every single human bloodline has a connection because of the very profound weaving of different genetic lineages within the aspect of the organism. Now, these genetic lineages are speaking to the evolutionary process of the souls that are in that ancestral lineage for millennia, for many lifetimes, in this dimension and in other dimensions as well. Remember that here on Earth, we are coexisting simultaneously with many dimensional timelines. And we access that data, we access that information by shifting our vibrational frequency, our resonance, in order to align and activate information from these resonant dimensions. So our ability to co-create really depends on the level of awareness that we have of these dimensional aspects of ourselves. So how the hybridization program functions in a nutshell, and I'm going to explain this very much in depth in this series over the next couple of days, is taking the essence of that genetic information and splicing it or utilizing its core data bank of historical bloodlines that exist within the ancestral lineage. And our ability to play a role in how the genetic splicing is occurring in this interdimensional breeding program allows us to choose whether the organism that is created is either high vibration or low vibration. The human has the ability of choosing what they are co-creating based on the level of awareness that the physical body has at the time of donating the genetic data. And of course, in the lifespan of a host or a person that is contributing to these hybridization programs, there is also an evolutionary process and unlocking and also suppressing of certain genetic data. A lot of these agreements, what are experiential agreements? We're also going to talk about what that is. But a lot of these experiential agreements to participate in specific hybridization programs are done as a result of unconscious aspects of the human host that has agreed in a way through their unconscious suppression, dormant state of themselves. And these kinds of agreements and interconnections into creating lower vibrational organisms can seem very complex. But the sooner that the host becomes conscious of themselves, they begin to open up the ability to navigate and choose what to do with each one of these hybrids that are being created. The hybridization program is about the sustainability of a matrix, and it's the sustainability of life force. How life force channels into a dimensional plane depends very much on the new lives that are being created. So essentially, it's up to every human, every organism that is participating on this earth to become conscious of themselves, to begin to activate these higher faculties in order to understand what is occurring in dream state, in out-of-body experiences. Those that have been reincarnating and that have had training many lifetimes of their life force cultivation usually are the ones that are most remembering their ET contact and their participation in the hybridization program. And oftentimes when a person begins to elevate their spiritual awareness, that's when they begin to recall the participation in this hybridization program. But also, that means that there is a certain key to the activation of the use of this kind of seed, the seed of life, which is the most powerful life force that the human contains within their body. This creative life force is the most valuable encoded substance that not only brings and can seed souls into this matrix, but also is utilized to activate the human's highest potential of co-creation. So this is the DNA is essentially the currency of the past, the present, and future. But that DNA is what connects to the soul. And essentially, the soul essence is the most important and valuable part of this entire hybridization program. So the utilization of this core essence is what is required to create new organisms. So let me actually go into the chat. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Jeanette, Mauricio, so good to see you. Brown Dwarfs, IT Guy, so great to see you. Marilena, good morning. Clarence, Kenna Osborne, so good to see you. Cedric, Christine, Pono, welcome. Sweet Candy Cane, Christine. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Pono, Paya Roa, so great to see you. Awesome. Let me see if there's any questions here. If you have any questions, go ahead and put it down in the chat. Great to see you, Robecore. Hello, Geraldine. Is there a specific bloodline for those that are type Rh negative? Yes. Yes, every single blood type also plays a role in the hybridization program. And I have done some presentations that touch on that a little bit, but we will address that in this series as well. Every single blood type really speaks to the vibrational frequency of the soul and the past lives that they've had leading up to the agreements that they have in this lifetime. They also define the kind of participation that they're going to be having in the hybridization program, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Okay, so we had several questions about the hybridization program and parasitic entanglements, soul contracts, free will. And so what the hybridization program really is about is utilizing the soul in order to create more life forms. So if we understand the basis of that, it really is up to the human to begin to decide whether they want to participate. Now, there are two sides to this. The soul is the access of source, and the soul is what is utilized as a fractal of infinite consciousness to channel source into any dimensional plane in which it exists. But it's not so much as we exist simultaneously in all dimensional planes. So the organism has to become conscious. It has to become aware of itself without any conflicts. It has to become aware of itself in order to understand how to anchor that source, that pure life force, into its physical vessel in any dimensional plane. So our ability to choose how we are participating in physical and non-physical. So the fact that we exist on all dimensional planes means that we are both physical and non-physical. In the three-dimensional plane, we exist physically. In other dimensional planes, from the seventh to infinite number of dimensional planes, the physical body exists non-physically. It can navigate non-physically. So we are navigating in dream time. The moment we go to sleep, we leave the body every night. We begin to navigate these planes, and this is where we begin to interact in these planes. And our toolbox of information isn't only accessible based on the information that you've been able to become aware of in this lifetime. This is how we understand, because many people that don't have a spiritual practice in this lifetime still are experiencing very spiritual experiences in their dream state. Why is that? Sometimes they're healers. Sometimes they are able to manifest things. They're able to have telepathic communication. They interact with other species, other dimensional organisms. And the ability to access those tools requires training of your life force in the physical body for many lifetimes. So many souls that are in dream time much more active psychically than they are in the waking state are souls that have incarnated and that have been incarnated and that have been cultivating their life force for many, many lifetimes. So all of this information, this is how we understand what holographic DNA is. The access to that data bank of information of everything that we are is located within the holographic DNA. Everything that is available to you within the morphogenetic field of the body that links the physical to the non-physical. So that being said, ET contact, cyclical trauma plays a huge role in either the suppression of your activation of these faculties or the expansion of the activation of your faculties. That's why I dedicate so much time focusing on deprogramming matrix programming. Because as soon as you deprogram matrix programming, the soul at its highest elevated activation can emerge, and we can activate that within the body. The activation of the highest level of the body is an alchemical process. It is the transmutation of lower frequencies into highest vibrational ranges, in which it can begin to access and navigate in these higher dimensional planes consciously, lucidly. Without lucid awareness, whether in your waking state or in dream state, you cannot be aware, nor can you control, nor can you have free will of what you are interacting with. So that is a law of the universe that is very important for us to understand. So this is where the human begins to become unconsciously entangled in the hybridization program, and not just the hybridization program, but any other parasitic exchange. We are here in this three-dimensional plane in order to create, bring to life. We bring to life manifestation of experiences. We bring to life learning, manifestation of learning, and we bring to life, another soul, another organism. We have the ability of creating. But there are many different ways that the human has to create, and it's not about sex. It's not about procreation. So this is where things start to get very interesting. We're going to talk about the difference about procreation and creation, co-creation. There's a very huge difference between that. Bringing life into the three-dimensional physical plane is a mechanical process. It becomes a mechanical process because organisms are unconscious and usually becomes a cause and effect, just a side effect of the linking of unconscious patterns and the propagation of cyclical traumatic programs that sustain the matrix. The matrix becomes a parasitic system if we don't understand how to become awake or conscious. And our breeding, our bringing into life humans, isn't necessarily what allows to bring sustainability into this world. We have lost the understanding that we have been training for millennia, the ancient understanding of what the alchemical birth, the alchemical creation, co-creation of soul essence is. In order to bring a life into this physical world, the two parents, father and mother, have to elevate their vibrational frequency into a high state because it's by resonance that souls are incarnating into ancestral lineages. And it's through resonance that the human can begin to create life of a higher vibrational essence. Without that education, without that awareness, the lives that we're bringing into this physical dimensional plane are sustaining matrix programming, and they are prolonging the cyclical ancestral traumatic programs of a matrix. So this is where we begin to hear, and in many different religions, the concept of the reincarnation wheel and the opportunity to leave the wheel. The participation of the wheel is the sustainability of a matrix. The wheel is the matrix. And the matrix isn't just limited to the three-dimensional plane. The matrix is everything within the 13-dimensional layers of which we expand within, because we are going to learn of the origin as well, from the breath of life, from Sophia to Yaldabaoth to the beginning of the archons that breathe life into the different races, the different species, vibrational frequency ranges of these archonic essences that created the fallen angels, that create these life forms on earth that are a mixture of these high vibrational entities, vibrational in terms of the dimension in which they descend from, but not necessarily high vibration in regards to the intention of their engagement with these beings. So that's another thing that we need to differentiate. The interactions that we've had for centuries of life being bred on Earth have a cause and effect. And the process of putting the human in a state of hypnosis is the parasitic reflection that is created for the human in order to experience contrast. But the human has to remember at some point in the reincarnation that they can break away from that hypnosis, that hypnotic state. And they can also break away from the procreation process of cultivation of an unconscious parasitic matrix. It is in everything that I'm talking about right now, you will not hear me separate these things as good and bad, because there is no such thing as good and bad. It is just a matter of understanding cause and effect and the nature of our reality. And where the human potential and power lies is in the activation of our awareness in order to be able to navigate all of these systems through the levels of our conscious awareness. There are many scriptures through history that have talked about these things, which allow us to understand that we are not the first ones to become conscious of the hybridization program. We are also not the first generation to become aware of the parasitic entanglements that happen in the non-physical realm. These are things that exist within the architecture of the human existence and in the nature of our reality. But it is within the human that we have to educate ourselves on what the potential of the human vessel is and how it functions in order to begin to navigate and move forward in what we're doing. So in this series, we're going to talk about how these seeds of life have created and generated the different bloodlines from which we are, how virgin births through history have been cultivating the art of creation, of bringing life, which again is different than just procreation, and is very is not something that both men and women can do it. Okay, both men and women can bring life into this terrestrial plane, but the utilization of these life forms of the sexual energy and the activation of this core seed of life in the human body is actually what allows the human to activate into its highest state. So parasitic programs of the hybridization program occur when there are disruptions or hypnotic ancestral aspects of ourselves that have not been addressed. So all of the ancestors in our bloodline that have not reached some level of conscious awareness contribute to the kind of activity that we are experiencing in the dream state and in the out-of-body experiences. When we begin to clean up these patterns from our current lifetime and begin to address ancestral traumas, this is when we begin to understand why we are having parasitic experience in this timeline. And the alchemical transmutation of our energy in this lifetime allows us to transmute all of the hybrid children that have been created in previous aspects of ourselves. Now, hybrid children, again, there is no right and wrong. There are high vibration entities that are created, and there are also low vibration entities that are created. Hybrids can be physical, and they also can be non-physical. In this series, we're going to talk about the difference of these two hybrids, the two kind of hybrids that there exist. We're going to talk about the reason for the creation of these hybrids, how they are utilized, and how they begin to be reinserted in either the reincarnation cycle or begin to access higher dimensional levels of you in your dream state by utilizing your genetic database. The genetic information that is utilized in your body to splice and create other organisms is the portal to all aspects of yourself, your ET aspects, your past life access. So it's within this database that we have access to a lot of important information of what you are. And it's our job to begin to research what is within that data so that we can begin to reintegrate. And when I talk about reintegration, I'm talking about the expansion of your consciousness into all dimensional layers. Okay, so let's go into the questions now to see if I can answer any questions. Geraldine, this may be, hold on, Kaya has longevity. Do you think the path to the next dimension is through the Tibetan rainbow body? No, I think we are interacting interdimensionally at all times, whether you are the rainbow body or you're not the rainbow body. The rainbow body refers to the full integration and self-organization of internal harmony that's created through the alchemical processes of your body. The rainbow body is basically all of the layers of your body, clean, organized, conscious, there are no hidden parts, and full integration of yourself in all dimensional layers. The process to get there will not block you from having interdimensional awareness. We are innately interdimensional. Since the womb until now, in dream state and in waking state, we are constantly moving interdimensionally. So I believe that we have access to these dimensional planes. We just need to understand what that really means. Okay? IT guy says, Geraldine, this may be beyond scope, but how does all of this, if it does at all, fit in with getting back to Godhead and moving our cycles of birth, life, death, and ultimately getting back to God? all of this refers to getting back to God. God referring in this case, and I don't know what your definition of God is, but in my understanding and definition of God, it is source, the source of all things, not as an entity or an intelligence or individual, independent being, but as a source of light. And we are all light frequency. We are fractals of that source. Everything that we are here as this fractal of infinite consciousness is a projection which is experiencing one three-dimensional plane and directly informing the source. Source is learning through every single fractal that exists. And your fractal has other fractals and fragments within itself. And infinitely, we are fragmented within all dimensional planes and experiencing simultaneously. The human, when it becomes aware of its fractal and it becomes aware of its fragments and it becomes aware of its dimensional layers in which it exists, that's what it means to return to God. Your awareness is now growing from just this tiny little aspect of yourself into itself as the whole until it sees itself as source. The whole concept of the human coming into its highest state is for the human, this fractal vessel, to become aware of itself as source. Okay, so thanks for that question. And we're going to go deeper into that in a second. Sounds similar to alchemical wedding. Yeah, we're going to talk about what the alchemical wedding really is. It's the integration of the feminine and masculine. Thank you so much, Messiah. 90-degree turn. So good to see you. Hi, Geraldine. How do abductees not become very angry and even traumatized from being taken against their will and having invasive things done to them? Yes, thank you for that question, Fred. This is actually the reason why I'm doing this entire series. I have many people that I'm working with, both in my clinical practice and also with DNA reprogramming, to help them integrate trauma, PTSD, as a result of interdimensional contact. And I'm going to tell you that over the next 4 or 5 years, contact will rise. More people will have contact. More people will become aware of their interdimensionality. So as in all the ages of evolution, of heightened level of evolutionary states, every ancient culture that has reached its peak point of evolution, there is a moment where we have to educate the humans in understanding how they function. We are coming out of the hypnotic state, this drowsy, drunken state that we've been in for a very long time, into a moment of collective awakening. And we've been going through that major process over the last couple of years, and we're going to continue in that direction over the next 10 years. And that requires the re-education of history, science, physics, mathematics, and everything else that we believe creates the foundation of what reality is in this three-dimensional hologram. And until we understand that, the re-education, this education never ends, because as we grow in awareness of dimensional planes through our physical body, we will become aware of new technologies, new sciences, and a new understanding of everything which we once thought was so material, physical, and limited by those sciences. So that being said, with this understanding, we can pull away and help the human integrate from trauma into an understanding of how they function. We are interdimensional. The problem is that, as with everything in the unknown, when we are in the state of unknown, of course, we don't know how to navigate in that state. So we are going to be learning how to navigate the unknown, all unknowns, including ET contact, abductions. What are abductions? Are they really abductions? Is it really without our knowledge? Is it with our knowledge? What does it mean to have knowledge and to be aware of these states? We're going to break all of that down, because that's very important. And this hopefully empowering each one of you in your experiences. Okay? Yep, this lesson, our trauma unlocks more third eye gifts and just buoyancy to navigate through waters. That's right. Yay, a new series. Let's do this. Yes. Wow. Thank you, Geraldine. You have so much to give us. Amazing. Thank you very much for your questions. Others have said that there exist other gods in universes higher than this one. What's your understanding? Absolutely. But again, the concept of God to me is incredibly limited because we are trying to compartmentalize and to, I guess, put into a definition something which cannot be defined. One thing that I hope to do in this channel is break away as best as we can the film and the illusion, the filter that is created through the human experience. Yes, we are human, we are living in this physical realm. We will try to explain all of these things from the perspective of the sciences and the information that we have available to us today in order to make sense of these things as best as possible. But there is a point in which we have to depart from that limited thinking into the multidimensional understanding of what we are. And that, of course, is a learning curve. But as we work in that direction, our multidimensionality allows us to understand that we cannot compartmentalize and continue to box things into definitions, because these definitions, mind you, are strategically created. We need to look at the etymology of every word. We need to look at the origin of concepts into the collective subconscious of the human mind, which is very precisely modified. It's designed and socially designed in a way to keep us from being able to see in a multidimensional manner. So we need to question the words that we use, because sometimes we just pick up words and we utilize them, but really we are having to create new definitions. God as a concept of the source of things is ever evolving, it is infinite, and there are many dimensional layers which our human mind couldn't even begin to wrap around the laws of those existences. Therefore, the human, it would be very hard. And through my internal navigations in these realms, I have been able to see, experience, and touch those things. But it is so magnificent that it would be very difficult for the human to be able to pull that in and really even utilize that in this three-dimensional plane. But we will talk about that. The short answer is yes. Okay. Hey, Geraldine, what is your understanding of Rh negative blood type? Why would a blood type exist that could essentially attack non-Rh negative oxygen? Exactly. Yeah, so we're going to absolutely talk about that because this speaks to a bloodline that was genetically modified in our historic lineage for a very specific reason. And it also speaks to the amount of DNA that is active within the organisms that have this kind of blood type. This was a deviation from blood types in order to create a very different ancestral family. And the ancestral family will not be able to breed with specific family bloodlines, okay? So this kind of anomaly that created in the genetic pool is something that helps us understand how when this collective unconscious becomes conscious, there is the rebel against the genetic modification of data of our holographic DNA. Our holographic DNA has been genetically modified in order to create very specific agendas and groups of consciousness with specific access to data. And this is where we started to have, very Hitlerian concepts of genetics and the ideas of certain groups being higher than other groups, which causes tremendous, and is still going on, right? This kind of genetic wars are still occurring today. We are in the thick of that war today with what is occurring today. So our understanding of what our genetic data is essential to understanding where we're going and how we got to where we are today. And we will discuss that. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. We have a lot to talk about. And in this series, we're going to cover every single one of those topics. please put your questions down below about the hybridization program. I really wish to address every single one of these questions to the best of my ability so that we can help ourselves understand what is the hybridization program from a very profound way of understanding, and to open space for further evolution in the direction of this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have an incredible day. Much love. Bye, everyone.